this is, that negative thought you've been having, and I just can't let you try and change yourself without a fight. So, go ahead and just turn the show off, okay? And, yeah, everything's still fine.
This is Blindsight with your host, Bill Lundgren, an AINC original podcast.
You serious?
We're not holding back truth. We're here to help you heal and become the best you possible. Here's the chair. Here's the pillow. Here's Bill.
Welcome to Blindsight. This is your host, Bill Lundgren. The podcast is produced by Audio Information Network of Colorado, and we're focusing today on the subject of loneliness. Of course, none of the people who listen to this program have ever felt lonely, and that includes the people who work here, ever. However, for the rest of those people, loneliness is a major issue, and the Public Health Department, the Surgeon General, has issued a report of his committee on loneliness and calling for a major effort on the part of the government and the public to change that, because it's become very clear that it has physical as well as mental health implications, including a 50% increase in dementia for aging population, including 32, I think, chances of increased chance of strokes. There's a lot of physical response to this thing we call loneliness. Now, today, we're going to have an interaction again with our producer and myself to talk about this subject and what we're learning from the research that's coming out. And Jonathan, are you there?
I'm here. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Good. Okay. Any thoughts that you have when we talk about loneliness?
Yeah, it's scary. When I think of loneliness, it's all too real and all too prevalent. It's very common for people to be in a crowded room feeling very alone. And part of that is due to the technology that we hold in our hands. And we think that our phones or of our books or whatever media we have in our hands can link us together to people, which they can, but it's not meaningful. And the core of what the Surgeon General was talking about in his report is all around the aspect of relational gathering. And so I want to read this quote real quick out of his article. It says, "We now know that loneliness is a common feeling that many people experience. It's like hunger or thirst. It's a feeling that the body sends us when something we need for survival is missing. Millions of people in America are struggling in the shadows, and that's not right. That's why I issued this advisory to pull back the curtain on a struggle that too many people are experiencing." And one of the interesting things that he made reference to, loneliness on a daily basis is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That If that doesn't get your attention about what loneliness is and the dangers that it can present, you need to take a serious, long, hard look at what you're doing with your own life and what you're doing with the people who are in your life. If you're not engaging with your kids, your spouse, your parents, your friends, your coworkers, look, you can try to say they're not engaging with me, so I'm not going to engage with them. That is one of the core issues with loneliness. Well, you didn't do it for me, so I'm not going to do it for you. So, we've got to make a mental note and a conscious decision to get out of our loneliness and go do something. Go do anything. I don't know. I'm pretty fired up about this topic, Bill.
Yeah, and I am too. The couple things I want to add to it, not so much discussed in the report, but when we're talking about loneliness, we're not talking about aloneness.
Right.
Because I think loneliness is that we don't feel like we have an alternative. We feel stuck. Right. We feel, we can feel that nobody loves us, or we feel that we can't do anything about this condition. However, if you're a parent, you may want to be alone, but you're making a choice. Hey, kid, do this instead. And I just want to have some peace and solitude. And that's very restorative.
Yes.
What we're talking about is the aloneness where it isn't restorative. In fact, it increases our misery, so to speak. The other piece that I think is important, you're talking about, and related to that, you're talking about you get out and do something. Part of the problem is that the individual feels stuck and doesn't know what he or she can do.
Right.
And that's why I thought it was interesting about the report from the Surgeon General. He was outlining every sector in our country, from schools to health service and so forth, the things that they can do to help. And so it is a joint effort, society and the individual, and each has their requirement. I think for, the individual, yes. If the individual can exercise, if the individual, in fact, is so stuck, so to speak, can seek out some mental health counseling to help him or her move out into it. It can be as also one of the ways that we kind of cover up those feelings is we may take on an addiction, whether it's workaholism, whether it's chemicals, whatever it is, some way to anesthetize those feelings.
Yes.
And we have to observe, that is, what I say to people right off the bat, when we're feeling that loneliness, we have to ask ourselves, what's going on? How am I stuck? What is causing me to be so immobile? Sometimes, as you outline, we're saying, those people don't like me, or I don't fit in that group, or, we can come up with all kinds of suppositions. And if we stay in those suppositions and don't test them out, then, we're caught in this physiological stress of loneliness. And so it's a two-part effort. That is
well, it's also a fine line between wanting to take 15 minutes to be by yourself so that you can recharge your batteries and wanting to be alone for, days on end at a time, or even even in social settings, isolating yourself, putting yourself in the corner, or even to the much greater detriment, being in a crowd of people, talking to people and engaging, but emotionally keeping a what I call as a glass wall where you can interact with everybody and you can have those meaningful conversations, but there will be zero connection because you're the mental, you're performing. The mental block is there. And when that mental block is there, I think that's so much more dangerous than just isolating yourself physically for a few minutes or just in a corner. He also said, this was another thing that shocked me, was that ages 15 to 24, so high school, young adult, that age group reported a 70% drop in the time spent with friends from, 20 minutes a day. What does it say? My notes say friends in 2020. So they spent about 20 minutes a day in person with friends in 2020, down from 60 minutes daily nearly 2 decades earlier.
But that's the pandemic. And that pandemic has really raised our isolation, and in fact helped us to sort of form a cocoon, so to speak, a negative cocoon against people, because we say, I can't go out because of so forth and so on. And we have just lost the skill to interact unless it's by Zoom.
We got lazy.
If that.
Right. We got lazy. We decided that, okay, I can see you on a screen. That's good enough for me. And I'm going to go do something else. It's a false connection. It's a fake connection. And when you have fake connections and you decide that those connections are true and real, you end up hurting yourself in the long run, because then you don't know how to act in a public setting. You don't know how to go out and have dinner with people. You don't know how to go out and go dancing and go explore the cities and go to movies and go be with people in a public setting. And so when you're only acting with people on a Zoom call or whatever media you want to have, and we all have these tendencies to be keyboard gurus or keyboard warriors behind a closed door and behind our computer screens. It's easy for us to say whatever it is that we want to say because we don't have any consequences for our actions. I think that also plays a big part of it. But when we go to loneliness, it hurts me when there are people in my life that I know for a fact are lonely.
Yep.
And they will not engage in whatever activity it is. And when they do, they fold their arms, they cross their legs, and they have this grumpy look on their face. And when you try to bring them into a conversation and you're inviting them into a place of community, and they shut you down, it's so hard for those people, because I'm the type of person who wants to go out and create those friendships and relationships and, interact with people. But, it's so hard for me to see somebody I know who I love is so lonely.
But you see, the issue, and this is where I think the self-awareness has to begin, because a lot of people don't know how to interact in a real fashion with other people. They're afraid of it, or they have never learned. They came from looking good families that would hide themselves.
Right.
And they're what we describe as the private people who just are afraid to open up because shame or something may happen to them if they came down off that pedestal and tried to be close to someone that's hurt. You really you have to make yourself vulnerable to cross the barrier into connection. And there's
Bill,
yes.
I was going to ask you, what are some of the health risks specifically that you've seen in relation to loneliness?
I think, certainly suicide is very high.
Right.
And also, what the Surgeon General's report is talking about, increased cardiac, increased, I think the loneliness has produces the chemicals in the body that are produced by inactivity, negative toxic energy hormones that inactivity can bring on. And there's obesity rate, there's any number of things. Diabetes apparently is very high. It is higher for someone who is into loneliness. And this is borne out by research. This isn't some kind of cockamamie kind of thing. What I see so often is sometimes self-injurious behavior, like I mentioned, addiction. I see people who are just absolutely miserable. And, we humans are social animals. If we people don't like to be compared to primates, but if you look at some of the research that's done on primates, you see interaction and even, primates grooming each other, being not afraid to express what they're feeling. But we've created a society, even before the internet, where there are people just afraid to be themselves, because if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me.
Right.
Which is, they're saying in essence, I don't like me.
Yeah.
And there's another paper which also has come out, and it's been an ongoing study from that Harvard has been doing for 83 years. It's a multi-generational study. And what they were looking at is this fun term, happiness. What is happiness? How do you create happiness? And their study had over and over again said that relationships is the one correlate for happiness.
Yeah.
And so, which is in line with the report from the Surgeon General that we need that social connection. And right now, we have some real problems because we're so divided as a nation politically and in terms of ideas of how things should be, that we're not even talking to each other. It's not just the internet. It's the fact that our discussions are so hostile that we aren't even able to talk to each other. And one of the things that the report certainly points out is what I, as a therapist, I'm having to help people with, is the idea of teaching people how to connect, because we don't know how to, we're not trained. And one of the connections is for us, just us, the person that's lonely, to reach out and to talk to other people, but talk in a way that feels safe and not hold back. One of the things that's so important, I get this all the time in working with couples and working with, as well as individuals, is how to talk to one another. We get into these confrontations when really what we need to do, if someone has an opinion that's different from ours, to, instead of counter it, explore that subject with the person.
Yeah.
And to explore it in a couple ways. Number one, I ask couples to teach couples to, when they have something they need to discuss, to sit down facing each other at a table, a cup of coffee or something, and for one person to state what it is they're thinking or need or whatever, and for the other to just paraphrase it. In order to let the first person know that he or she heard what was requested.
Yeah.
And we can do that as friends. We can say, well, what I hear you saying is X, Y, Z, even though you think it's absolutely absurd, but make sure that that person you're talking to knows that you've heard him, because a lot of times we aren't hearing each other.
Right.
And then after the paraphrasing, and we can even say, did I hear that right? Then you can say, well, not confront the person, but say, well, I see things a little differently. And, go on to see, not in a confrontation or you're wrong, but be able to really listen and maybe empathize with what the person is saying. For example, I can understand why you might feel that, especially if you ask the person, well, that's an interesting idea. Tell me, what does that do for you to follow that line of thinking, and allow the person, even if you think this is absolutely crazy, take that germ of understanding and listening to the person, because even if the two of you leave with maintaining your stance, at least you felt like both of you heard each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's really crucial in conversation. If we don't do that, we shortcut.
We do. We absolutely shortcut. And I think if you are somebody who is looking to, I guess, help in a way, I guess that's the best word to put it, you can call somebody, and if they're open to it, get together with just them one-on-one. Just one-on-one. We don't need to go into this whole big arena and say, everybody come be my friend. We don't need that. We need one person with one person doing life together side by side.
Exactly.
And the side by side essence of saying, what are you struggling with? How can I help you? How can I be there for you? If you're religious, how can I pray for you? How can I be here with you in all of these situations? And when you do that, something beautiful happens where, it's always been said that in your military buddies, in your squadrons, those are your brothers. And because you have gone through firefights together, you've gone through training together, you've been through literal hell and back with the same people, and shared, stresses and shared struggles will bring about a level of intimacy that can help fight loneliness. And so when you come alongside of somebody and you say, how am I going to help you today? They may say, I don't know. And that's when you have to say, okay, I'm noticing that something is happening here, or I'm noticing that you haven't gone to the store in 3 days and your shelves are looking a little bare. What can I buy you at the store? And get them to start a dialogue by, what can I do? What can I get you? Be hyper specific about certain things that you're talking about. And it will draw those people into a very small, short conversation with you about what their needs are. It may be just, hey, I noticed that your feet are bare. Do you want some socks? Can I get you some socks? And it's, if you offer a question in the way of, can I do something for you? Can I serve you? Can I do this? Instead of, do you want this or do you want that? It's easier for them to say no to a do you want question rather than a can I serve you? How can I be there for you?
Well, there's a little problem here because, and I agree with what you're saying. One of the difficulties, particularly for us males, it's real difficult for us to accept any help.
Agreed.
And I think, and again, we're talking in terms of how to deal with loneliness. One, for the individual who is lonely, for him or her to just try a little bit of reaching out in that way will help tremendously for that person to feel empowered.
Right.
Just as someone who is helping someone is lonely, to be able to reach out and let that person know that he or she is not a one down, but is an equal. But this person who's reaching out is wanting to empower him, or is noticing what's going on and just gently helping them to make some decisions to move forward. So it's a two-way street, which helps the person who's doing it to feel good.
Right.
And if the person who is giving help is doing something good for that person. In other words, it's a two-way street. I can say to you, can I get such and such, or what is it that would be helpful? I'm doing one part of the transaction, but when you let me do it, you're giving me a gift. You're not taking from me. You're giving me a gift, the gift of being able to give to somebody.
Yeah.
And we don't get that many opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, what I get as a blind person, I'm standing on a street corner and the person says, do you need help? That feels one down for me. And, I usually say to him, well, I'm beyond help. But, right, which is the reaction most people, immediately. It's empowering for me to say that because I make a joke and then they, it isn't feeling like a one down position. What I teach ushers, for example, at the DCPA is when you have a patron coming in who has blindness, we say, how can I be of assistance to you? And it's different from, do you need help?
Right.
And be able so you have to be very delicate about it. But at the same time, if you find a way that you can let them know, hey, no big deal about my giving you a hand. In fact, I would feel great if you would let me do it.
Right. Can I help you with those bags? You seem to be struggling with carrying 80 bags of groceries.
Right. And that becomes a transaction. And how we do it is as important as that we do it.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, when we decide that we're going to help somebody if we take over, and people with blindness know exactly what I'm talking about, grabbing by the arm or making the decision for the person only enhances the loneliness because they don't have any power. You're taking their power away. And no wonder they're going to withdraw. And I think one of the things thinking in terms of the report, as a person with blindness, when you lose your sight, you really, you have to adjust to the fact that you can't see people in the same way you used to. You can't follow their body language. You have to find other ways to understand the unspoken message of the other individual. Right. And that gets very scary. Yep. Or someone who's a senior and they have macular degeneration and they aren't able to drive, or they can only drive, down to the corner store, and they feel that power being taken away from them, and that shame and that doubt causes people to withdraw, and that becomes a secondary effect of blindness that is really very important, because you become more isolated in order to deal with the feelings that you have of helplessness. They're not being quite as good as somebody else or whatever. And we have to really do a lesson on ourselves to begin to know that what they, for example, teach in the NFB, you can do anything you want to do. You just need to find out how to do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that gets stretched a little bit. I remember having, when I was in the school here, and having my classmates wrestle with that statement. And they said, well, how would a blind person rob a bank? And, they spent quite a bit of time. The only thing I could add is that I'd have to change my dog's color. The getaway dog. But while it was funny, it was an education to us to say, okay, maybe there are things that I can do. I just need to do differently.
Sure.
And that's where, someone who has blindness, and particularly a newly blind person, when they're in that loneliness thing, they say, well, I don't know how to date because I can't see the person, that I meet in a bar or something like that. Well, you've got to find other ways to reach out to people. And the fact that you're reaching out to somebody who's sighted and you're blind, again, it's that transaction that you're helping them to feel good to help you, and you're getting the job done. And you don't have to do the job. You can have somebody help you. And that's a benefit as far as I'm concerned.
I agree 100%. Absolutely. Well, Bill, as we land this thing, I want to put you kind of on the spot and give you two assignments or have you give our listeners two assignments. The first assignment being one to the person who does not feel lonely, and the second assignment is to the person who does feel lonely. What can they do in their respective areas?
And because it's an assignment, I would like the people who are listening to think about it. There are a couple things at times when I felt lonely. The thing that's been someone giving me a call unexpectedly, and I'm trying to do that more myself.
Agreed.
As a non-lonely person, to call people I haven't talked to for a while, and to touch base, just to let them know that I'm thinking of them. It's so important for that person who's feeling lonely, as well as it's important for the lonely person to do that to help him or herself feel empowered, but also to do something nice for another person. Now, that's real tough when you're feeling lonely and trapped. But sometimes, it's helpful. This may sound absurd, but have a list of people that you do care about and put a list down and make a note that, when you're feeling down, to call that person, and you're not going to pour out your woes. You're going to find out how they are. In other words, because when you're lonely, you're really internalizing a lot of stuff.
Right.
But if you can reach out and promise yourself that you'd keep your distress under wrap, or at least get the conversation going with the other person, because the other person may be feeling as miserable as you. And the two of you can, sort of share, this is what I'm doing, or this is how we can get out of that. And just that conversation, or have somebody say, I've been thinking about you. I'm so glad you called.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are all very, very important little things.
I love that idea, because I just had a friend of mine call me a couple of weeks ago out of the blue. I haven't talked to him for, 4 or 5 years at least. And he heard I was going through some stuff, and he called me and said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm here for you. I'm praying for you. How can I help you? How can I serve you?" And
exactly,
let me know what's going on. And so we talked for a little bit, and in turn, I asked how he was doing, and he's struggling with some medical issues, and it re-engaged. It helped place that brick so that we could build another bridge, because the bridge may not be torn down, but it's pretty old and rickety, and there are some things on there that need to be replaced, if I'm perfectly honest. And I love that, Bill. I love that. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I teach is verbal intimacy. Yeah. And there are different levels at which we talk. And that has so much to do with, in terms of bridging that gap in loneliness. If the first stage being, you be in a room and you look at each other, you notice, we're there for the first time, but you don't say anything. There's absolutely, just acknowledging that somebody is there.
Right.
But the levels go deeper and deeper depending on how safe you feel and how safe that person feels. You can talk about what's going on in the room, and, very objective. But more and more, as you allow yourself to draw closer to somebody, you can be a little more truthful about, whether it's background or things that are going on right now. What you're talking about, when somebody calls up and is able to be that intimate with you and allow you to be intimate with him in terms of saying this is what's going on. This is truthful. This is what I'm struggling with. And you get a response from him.
Right.
Yeah, this is what I'm going through. So you're in the same level, and you know that you can trust this person because both of you are talking in the same level. This is a skill.
And now we're fighting fights at the same time. And now we're back to back
which we all are.
Combative.
You know, if we were honest with each other, we would find we'd have so much in common. And it's real interesting. I was back in my hometown, went to a reunion. And in a sense, in many ways, I wasn't that close to the people who, when I was in high school with them, we were off in different spheres. And of course, adolescents, we're unpredictable. Yeah. But now that we've all matured and we had some really good conversations and sharing what's going on, and found out that one person was doing the same kind of work as I was doing at the same time, but we were in different sphere and we never connected. Yeah. And we both felt real bad about that because we could have been so helpful to each other.
Sure.
But the high school experience made it very difficult for us to bridge that gap.
Right.
But the reunion, we said, oh, this is what's going on. And we weren't afraid of each other. And we became closer, I think, at the reunion than we were when we were students. And that was a real education for me. And, and I know why it didn't happen in high school. But I also know that, I haven't seen these people for years. And we connected so well.
Very nice.
That was affirming for me. And because I thought it was going to be a lonely experience. And I had some questions, why am I going? But, your curiosity to find out what's happened in those years. And also to share if you're willing to share what's going on with you, then you get that feedback that we really, really yearn for. Yeah. And yet we so seldom get because we are taught not to be that open with people because they might hurt us.
Yep.
Which just add to the loneliness feeling. There's a reassurance. If I let people know where I am, they're going to hurt me or they're going to use it in some way.
That's a big possibility.
Right. And in that way, we have built a wall and only we are able to break it down. So when we reveal, but we have to be very careful to, if we think about the levels of the depth of what we share, to pay attention to whether the person is following us. And I talk, about my mother who was afraid of emotions, and she, she didn't recognize an emotion if she tripped over it. And, being a therapist, I'm trained to talk intimately, and so forth. Yeah. I teach my clients, and I tried to do that with her, and she would talk about a book she read.
Yep.
And so I know she was lonely. As I look back on it, she was very lonely. A lot of reasons. And unfortunately, it's too late to do anything about it, but except to remind myself that that's the training I got, that us kids got, and multi-generational, and that's how we learn loneliness, or can learn loneliness. And it takes effort then for the person with loneliness to take a risk to reach out. But I'm sure you've had experiences where you meet somebody and they move from social interaction to telling you in 10 minutes later their entire life history, and you walk away staggering on it. And that for the lonely person is a death wish.
Right. It is. Yeah. And talk about information overload.
Right. And so that we have to kind of tailor our responses, but not cut off the response, not all or nothing. We just have to take care of ourselves if we're afraid of hurt, but not to shut ourselves down as a way of avoiding hurt, because that hurts more.
Yeah.
And that's the loneliness.
Well, Bill, close us out. What are some final thoughts for you?
My thoughts are that, in the surgeon's report, it was so comprehensive that it seemed overwhelming. What each one of us has to do is his or her little bit to reach out, whether we're the person suffering from loneliness or to knowing someone who may be suffering loneliness, reach out to each other. And, you can eat an elephant, but it has to be one bite at a time.
Yes.
What we can do is on a personal level, just to deal with loneliness in the world by just action on our part.
Yep.
And so we've come to the end of a session, a podcast. I hope this has been helpful. We'd love to hear from people who are listening to let us know of something that you might want us to talk about, or any opinion you have about what we've shared. This is Bill Lundgren and Jonathan Price signing off. This is Blindsight, a product of Audio Information Network of Colorado, and we look forward to meeting with you again. Thank you.